Good evening, good evening. Welcome to Urban Renal Talk with Tamika and Steve. I am your host, Steve Belcher. My partner Tamika will be with us shortly. Tonight, we have Don P. Morman with the New York State CKD champions. How you doing, Don?
I'm doing great, Steve. How about you?
Pretty good, thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everyone who said a prayer or kept me in their thoughts in prayer. My family, my daughter, and the passing of Veronica Belcher, who was my ex-wife. Um, she was a lovely person. Unfortunately, she passed away unexpectedly last night, and just want everyone to keep our family and my daughter continuing your thoughts in prayer. So tonight, Don, we got a good topic tonight that we needed to bring you back on to talk about because you are a real advocate for infection control. Um,
Absolutely.
and the topic is what can dialysis nurses and techs do to prevent the spread of infection? And that's a serious topic, Don.
Yes, it's a matter of life and death, Steve.
Absolutely. Have you experienced any infection while you was in center?
Yes. Actually, my first infection, my first experience with an infection was way back in the '90s when I first got my fistula, and I experienced an infection in my fistula, and I lost it. I lost the whole fistula. So that is what made me become a little bit more aware. But the most recent and I would say traumatic experience was when I was coming back from my kidney transplant. My transplant rejected, and I had to come back with a catheter. And I was in center, and I contracted MRSA, and that was the most traumatic experience of my entire life. We didn't know if I was going to make it. I was unconscious for an extended period of time, and it was a really, really serious infection, Steve. And ever since then, I just have been gung ho about infection control and um, proper hand washing, aseptic technique, the training that's necessary. And it ultimately helped me to make my decision to go back home and do my dialysis treatments at home.
Wow, wow. You know, all healthcare workers are expected to follow standard precautions for infection control. And actually, CDC has developed specific recommendations that is tailored for hemodialysis healthcare workers, recognizing the increased risk for infection in the dialysis population. And for the people who are watching who don't know what standard precautions basically include performance of hand hygiene, use of personal protective equipment or PPE, and follow safe injection practices. And what that means is when the technician or the nurse is going to inject some type of medication, the text, be it is heparin, or nurses being it's epogen or any other type of injectable medications, they need to wipe off the top of the vial. And if they're going to inject it into a port, they need to wipe that off with an alcohol swab as well.
That's right.
So Don, why do you? Well, let me just share some other statistics um, as far as infection in dialysis patients. Bloodstream infections are a dangerous complication of dialysis. And 1 in 4 patients who get a bloodstream infection caused by staph aureus bacteria can face complications such as endocarditis, which is infected heart valve, and
Yes.
osteomyelitis, infected bone. Also, the total cost for each infection can be more than $20,000. Bloodstream infection can cause sepsis, which is potentially a deadly condition, and
Yes.
up to 1 in 5 patients with an infection die within 12 weeks.
Isn't that something? So that is a really, really, really serious topic for discussion. Patients need to be vigilant about who's touching them and using proper procedure. And we teach patients to be extremely vigilant and watch and not always sleeping during dialysis. We know that you like to catch that little nap, but it's good to wake up that 10 minutes before and see who's about to come over and take you off, and make sure that the proper techniques are being used before somebody puts their hands on you.
Absolutely. So, Don, why do you think dialysis patients are at risk for infections?
Well, for number one, we have compromised immune systems because of the nature of our disease. You automatically have a compromised immune system, and on top of that, you're constantly um, accessing the the bloodstream in order to do the dialysis treatment. So, therefore, if improper technique is used, or if somebody skips a step, or if anything out of the ordinary or outside of the protocol happens, you're completely open to a bloodstream infection.
Right.
So it's very important that protocol is followed to the letter, so that you can prevent these types of sepsis, bloodstream infections, and things like that. Because as we see, it's really it's an expensive thing to experience, as well as possibly deadly.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Also, frequent hospital stays and surgery uh, puts a person at risk for infection as well.
Yes. Yes.
Multiple, especially going to the access center multiple times, getting your
Yes.
access worked on. If the people there, if they're not practicing safe standard precautions by washing their hands, changing their gloves when they're moving to different patients, what they may be dealing with inside the access center, they can pass it on as well.
That's true. And I read an article recently that was shocking to me, that says that 50% of healthcare workers skip a step or two in their aseptic technique from time to time. And I found that to be shocking.
Really,
So that shows that we just have to be extra vigilant.
absolutely. What would you say to the patient doing dialysis right now who may witness that, healthcare worker not washing hands, and they may talk amongst the other patients about it, and they're watching this broadcast? What would you suggest how they approach that situation?
Well, I would say don't talk to the other patients about it. Clean hands save lives, and following those aseptic techniques can be the difference in a patient living or dying. And not only a patient, but the care team as well. If you're not following aseptic techniques and you're passing on bacteria and germs, you're taking those home to your family as well. You as a healthcare worker, if you haven't washed your hands um, thoroughly, and you're taking care of me, and I have an infection, and you go home and you kiss your baby, then you could be possibly infecting your child or your family members. So this is on a global scale here. We're not just talking about the patients getting the infections. We're talking about staff members, and we're talking about the entire care team. So what I would tell patients is, just like they say in the subway, if you see something, say something. You have every right to question a healthcare worker before they touch you, and ask them, if you don't mind, I didn't see you. Would you mind using hand gel? Would you mind washing your hands again? Or I didn't see you put on clean gloves. Would you mind changing your gloves before you put me on or take me off? There's nothing wrong with that. And to any healthcare worker that gets insulted as a result of a patient asking you to save their lives, I think that they're in need of some sensitivity training.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let me just say, our audience, some of the infections that patients can get, dialysis patients are at risk for. They're at risk for getting hepatitis B and C infections, and also bloodstream infections. Hepatitis B and C, for people who are watching and don't really know, are bloodborne viral infections that can cause chronic, lifelong disease involving inflammation, basically swelling of the liver.
Yes.
Hepatitis B and C viruses can live on surfaces and be spread without visible blood.
Isn't that something? So even after the chair has been to the best of your knowledge, to the chair has been disinfected and everything, you can still contract one of these bloodborne diseases. And this is what we tell patients. This is so serious. Um,
Absolutely, I agree.
you're worrying about dying from cardiac arrest, but if I'm not mistaken, infection is the second leading cause of death in dialysis patients.
Yes. And then a bloodstream infection is a serious infection that can occur when bacteria or other germs get into the blood.
Right.
And one way bacteria can enter the bloodstream is through vascular access. That's really the almost the number one way. And that's either through the catheter, through the fistula, or your graft.
That's correct. Yeah. And what about C. diff? I've been hearing talk about that a lot lately when we're talking about infections, and you don't know what someone's doing in the bathroom. So you definitely have to exercise that hand hygiene before coming back out onto the work floor.
Right. So, Don, let's stop for a second and answer this question. I don't know if we, can really answer this, but Stephanie Lingel asked, "How about bronchitis? I seem to get a lot. I have IgA nephropathy."
Hmm.
Now,
Well, isn't bronchitis
it's a respiratory
a
infection.
respiratory infection? Now, if your hands aren't clean, let's say for example, people are coughing in the in the unit, and they're not covering up, you can spread those germs that way as well. I have asked in the unit if they could give someone a mask that had a really bad cough in
Right,
the
right.
that was sitting near me, and I was afraid of catching something.
And Stephanie asked again, does lemon water clean out toxins? I mean, I can't answer that, Stephanie, because I'm not a chemist or, a medical professional that can answer that particular question. So I would advise you to seek a professional who probably deal with holistic healing,
Yes.
something like that. Because if you try to go to Western medicine, they're gonna kind of laugh at you, even if it does have some value in drinking lemon water. So,
And you don't want to wait until it's too late to start seeking out help. If you have a persistent cough or if you're building up phlegm and mucus, then it's time for you to seek professional help.
absolutely. She also asks, is diet important? That plays a big part in keeping your immune system up. Would you agree, Stephanie? I mean, I'm sorry, Dawn.
Yes, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Keeping your albumin and your protein levels at a good place, as well as taking your renal vitamins. All of those things, those are the building blocks of and your protection against infections and germs, and keeping your muscles and your heart healthy and strong. So, making sure that you have your proper lab values and having a good relationship with your dietitian will almost help, will help a great deal in you making sure that you have the proper nutrients that you need in the body to fight off infections.
Absolutely. So, look, let's talk about performance of hand hygiene. So, the
Yes.
question is, and I have the answers here, but when should healthcare workers, or let's say, because we're talking dialysis, when should nurses and dialysis technicians perform hand hygiene? And if you're watching, if you're inside of a dialysis facility, if you get your treatment there, this is when the nurses and the tech should perform hand hygiene. Before you touch a patient, before you inject or infuse a medication, before you cannulate a fistula or graft or access a catheter, after you touch a patient, after you touch blood, body fluids, mucous membranes, wound dressings, or dialysis fluid, after you touch medical equipment or other items at a dialysis station, after you remove your gloves. That's when you should perform hand hygiene, either with soap and water or the hand sanitizer. Is that correct, Don?
That is correct, and if I'm not mistaken, that hand sanitizer, according to CDC regulations, is supposed to be at least 60% alcohol. So,
Okay,
maybe those little cheap ones that you get from Dollar Tree may not be the best one for you. You should always look and check the ingredients and make sure that it has enough alcohol content to kill the germs.
absolutely, absolutely. And I invite our audience, uh, anyone who's watching right now, if you experienced a bloodstream infection, from your dialysis facility or even at home, and you'd like to talk about it and share the story, please um, share your thoughts right here, and we'll put them up on the screen, and we'll talk about them. That's the only way we're going to spread awareness and education and for it to get around, because what one place may be doing in the Midwest, they may not be doing in the Northeast or the Southeast or the Northwest. So we have to get this information around, Don, because there's many people, even over in international countries, where they don't have access to a lot of equipment like gloves, and they may run out or may have to use the same gloves for 2 or 3 patients.
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. You know, we complain about going to dialysis, and we complain about all of the different steps that you have to take in order to receive safe dialysis. And our treatments aren't as safe as they should be, maybe, but they're a lot better than they could be. I remember stories of way back when dialysis first started, when people just died of infection because it was just run so rampant. So we definitely have to discuss things in order to learn. An educated patient is an empowered patient. And again, I have to say, if you see something, say something. Don't feel ashamed, or don't feel like you're going to be retaliated against. Or maybe if you don't feel comfortable mentioning it to the staff member personally, talk to your social worker, whoever you feel comfortable talking to. You let them know that there is some improper protocol and procedure going on in the facility, that needs to be checked.
Absolutely. I agree. I agree. So Don, listen, for people who don't know, how do infections happen, I'm just going to explain the process. And basically, uh, 3 elements must be present for an infection to occur. You need a source, which is the germ or bacteria or virus.
Yes.
You need a susceptible host, meaning a person who is at risk of getting an infection from the germs. And as Dawn mentioned in the beginning, why do dialysis patients get are at risk for infections? She's one thing she mentioned, that the immune system is low with patients who have kidney disease. So you really have to be mindful of that. That's why it's important. Diet is very important, that you eat protein to get your albumin level up. Because if you do have an infection, you're not going to want to eat. You're going to feel weak, and your albumin level is going to be low as well. Um,
Yeah.
and then you need a way for the germ to move from the source to the host. So what that means, you need a way for the germ to move from the source to the host. So if someone happens to be have some bloody gloves and touch a cabinet, and they looking, they pulling the drawer open looking for supplies or other stuff, and got blood on their hands, instead of taking the gloves off, and they searching through and they leave the blood there, no one noticed, and it dries up, and then someone comes along, with clean gloves on, and open it up, and then go over to the patient and work with the catheter, or cleaning their arm with the alcohol swab and getting ready to stick the needle, then there go your entry point right there.
Yes, it is. And I also just wanted to add, Steve, transplant patients have to be careful as well. Even though you're not in the dialysis facility anymore, you still have a weakened immune system. So you still have to be vigilant about your hand hygiene, be vigilant about who's touching you, about being around babies who haven't gotten their immunizations as yet, and pets, and putting your hands in your mouth and in your face, and eating from different places. Nobody says that you have to be a germaphobe and not allow anyone to touch you, but you do have to be careful about where you're putting your hands and who's putting their hands on you, because the right kind of infection can cause you to lose a transplant as well.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I agree with you. Um, and doing my research, it says during dialysis, infections can be spread by contact transmission. And then it also says most common by healthcare workers' hands.
That's exactly right. So my girlfriend, my partner in CKD champion, Stephanie Dixon, she has a sign that she carries to dialysis with her that says, "Please wash your hands." And she sits the sign up on on the little table on the side of her dialysis chair to remind healthcare workers that it's important to practice those aseptic techniques and to practice that hand hygiene because again we can't impress it more firmly that it is a matter of life and death and you can
Okay, let me go back. I want to answer
sure
Stephanie's question. Um, Stephanie Lingall asked, "What BMI do you have to be to get a transplant?"
um
Do,
if
would you happen to know
yeah
that the
I
BMI, body mass index?
no, I'm not really familiar with the BMIs. That's not the stages 1 through 5. So I'm gonna let you answer that.
No, the BMI has to do with body mass index,
Oh,
and
yes,
I
yes. How
absolutely
heavy
don't
you are.
know the number. But Stephanie, you can talk with Joe Bueno. Joe Bueno, he's an transplant coach down in South Carolina, um, and he's real good with that as well. He would definitely know that. Also, she asked, "What if you have gout and can't eat much meat?"
Well, there are definitely other sources of protein besides meat. And
Absolutely, like plant-based.
right, right. I know we have to be careful with beans, with gout as well. But you make the substitutions. Maybe you can try your soy products, and
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
your soy meat, your soy burgers, and things of that nature. And those are good sources of albumin and protein, and also the protein bars. I know a lot of people have those because they have a hard time digesting the protein as well. So you
Mm-hmm.
should always talk to your dietitian about anything that you want to take in order to increase your protein levels, and you want to make sure that you know how to read your blood work monthly. When you get those that monthly lab work, you want to read that and you want to learn how to translate that into what you're taking in, so that you can make sure that you have the proper levels.
Right. So, just want to let our audience know that my co-host and business partner, Tamika Moore, has finally arrived.
Yeah.
Hi,
Hey,
Tamika.
Tamika.
Hi. Y'all can see me?
Yes, we see
Yes.
you.
Okay. So y'all see me waddling out the kitchen?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Good. Good to see you, partner. Good to
Good
see
to
you.
Yes.
see you.
Hi.
Yeah. So we talking about infection control. You know, catch your breath.
Yeah, we see that, Tamika.
Okay. I'm okay.
How many
Woosah,
more
baby.
weeks? Okay, 5. Okay, I was
Yeah.
Oh
close.
boy.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Infection control is very important. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
That's how
absolutely.
so many diseases get passed, you know, through the access to the spine. Like you'd be surprised of where these infections wind up festering from improper hand washing, staff and patient.
That's right.
Yeah, and Tamika and Dawn also, flu season is coming up, so that it could be, infection could be spread by droplet transmission. TB is spread
Yes.
by airborne transmission. So,
And not
um,
covering your mouth, Steve. A lot of patients have a problem where they don't cover the mouth. Staff too. So that's on both parts of covering your
Right.
mouth. If you know you have a cold, get a mask. It's okay to just ask for a mask.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree.
It's much better than spending $20,000 in the hospital for an infection.
Yes, yes. And also, I'm not sure if y'all touched on this, but eating food while on a machine, you don't know who was in that chair prior. You did talk about that?
No,
Okay.
we didn't. I
No, we
said I want you to
didn't.
talk about it.
Okay, you don't know who was in that machine prior, who blood droplets was left that may not have been wiped, and you're eating or you touch that front door and you come in and you're eating. So whatever on that front door, you just put in your mouth.
That's right.
Right.
Or you
And
go to the bathroom. Some patients get off the machine, go to the bathroom. Some don't wash their hands and they come back and they eat.
ooh.
Yes. Yes.
Ooh.
Have you experienced that, Tamika?
Yeah, I always, whenever a patient goes to the bathroom, I always try to wipe the door off before they get in and after. And if I
Okay.
can't get to them, I'll like give them some hand sanitizer. Like, here you go, you're about to eat. Here you go. Though we don't want them to eat, but they're grown, so I'm not getting cursed
Right.
out. So
Mm-hmm.
here you go.
Yeah.
Wash your hands.
Right, right. Let me just say something. Stephanie Lingill, she just said she was sorry for asking so much, but we encourage people to ask
Ask
questions. That's
questions,
what we're
right?
here for, Stephanie. So, ask as many questions you want. If we can answer it, we will to the best of our knowledge, and if we can't, we hope to get the information. Don, 23. I mean, wait. I'm sorry, 27 years, Don.
That's right.
27
Wow.
years experience with kidney disease.
Sheesh.
Also, executive director of New York State CKD Champions, and Tamika Moore, over 20 years experience. So we can get the answer if we don't know it.
Yeah. And
Knowledge.
it's good that you asking questions. That's the only way you're gonna learn.
That's right. And that's part of our mission with CKD Champions is to educate, encourage, and empower patients to live their best lives and
Right.
have a better quality of life by educating themselves. You can't
Yeah.
you can't control a disease that you don't know anything about.
So true.
Right.
So true.
So
What they
Don, go ahead, Tamika.
No, I was gonna say what they say. Knowledge is power.
That's
So you
right.
have once you know, you've taken power over your disease.
That's right.
Okay. Um, Don, what type of infection control fractions have you witnessed or observed while receiving in-center hemodialysis during your time
You know,
doing
I,
that?
I know we're talking about infection control, and I was hoping that you didn't ask me that, but I have to put it out there. But the worst infraction that I ever saw in a outpatient dialysis setting, it was incurred on me, as a matter of fact. Um, the nurse was taking me off of the dialysis machine, and they unscrewed both of the caps off of my catheter at one time and walked away and
What?
left me there with my catheter wide open and just walked away.
They
So
didn't wrap it.
no, I and at that time I didn't feel comfortable just yelling out, hey, you big dummy, you left my you left my catheter open. But I definitely did go and speak to those in charge
Mhm.
and let them know what was done to me, so that that person can be retrained or can be spoken to, or what have you. But
Right.
also there's just small things, any a microscopic molecule or whatever can cause an infection. Just like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the machine is going off and the technician or the nurse will go and push the button with their hand. without the gloves.
Mhm.
Now they can have anything on their hand at that point because we don't know who's touched the machine prior,
Mhm.
whether it's been properly disinfected. So that's another thing. Um, the staff
Mm-hmm.
is not supposed to touch the machine
Without a
without
glove.
a glove. Another thing
I'm
is
guilty.
that I see a lot is I see the workers coming outside of the unit with their PPE on, which is their protective with their gown and their gloves on. Now you're not supposed to come out the unit with your PPE on and then go back in. And I've seen that on many occasions. You
Are
know,
they
I noted. Uh huh.
going? Are they going out to get patients, or are they going outside of the unit?
Well, now I've seen both, Tamika. I hate to tell you. I have seen them come outside of the unit and, just come out to say, Mr. So and so, it's time for you to come in. But if I'm not mistaken, you're supposed to remove your garment whenever you come outside of the unit. So,
Mm-hmm.
I recently did a support group meeting at a dialysis facility. And as I was talking to the patients about the importance of infection control and not wearing your PPE outside of the unit, I noticed that the techs and the nurses they all stood inside the door and started to call the patients from inside. And they didn't come out to get the
But
patients.
you're supposed to come out and get the patient.
Well, listen, there's gonna be one thing or the other, you know.
So
They
you
are
was up there
supposed to.
spark. You was up there sparking matches.
That's exactly what was happening, Tamika. They heard me
Mm-hmm.
talking about, the proper protocol and the CDC regulations,
Mhm.
and and they got a little nervous.
Mhm.
But yes, you are supposed to come and get the patient
Mhm.
and take them inside to treatment and walk them over to the
Mhm.
scale. But um, I guess taking off that PPE was just too much work.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
But
mean, it slows you down taking it off
Yeah.
and putting it back on. But the reason why, doing research, the use of personal protective equipment or PPE correctly, this is for the healthcare worker and it protects the patient as well.
that's
Right.
right. That's
You're
right.
supposed to wear gloves, a
Mhm.
gown, and or face protection when you think you may come in contact with blood or other potential infectious material.
Yes.
Um, they're supposed to change gloves during patient care if the hands will move from a contaminated body site to a clean body site.
Right.
Remove gloves after contact with the patient and or the surrounding environment, including medical equipment,
Mhm.
and do not wear the same pair of gloves for the care of more than one patient.
Right. Now I have a question because I remember back in the day I've been doing dialysis since 1990 98. I'm sorry. It'll be December will be 20 years. And we used to use sterile gloves on the catheters. And I
Yes.
noticed a lot of units stopped using sterile gloves.
Yeah, they could be clean now.
Yeah, but I guess they say because the area isn't sterile. But I remember we had
It's
to
not.
use sterile gloves.
Right. And in the hospital, they still use the sterile gloves, but not in the outpatient setting.
Right.
So I have questioned that as well, Tamika. I would imagine that the sterile gloves probably just cost more.
Well,
Could be.
Tamika, since you said that, I remember when we used to have Tegaderm and
Yes.
Opsite,
Yes.
and you got some companies now that just use this cloth pad. They got
Yes,
adhesives at the end,
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
and you got other companies that just get a 4x4 and some
And
And
tape.
tape
some tape.
Hmm.
Oh
and
boy.
tape it up.
And then they
And
also. Mhm.
and I've seen people, especially in the nursing facilities, who may go back and have this on. And, with some patients who are in nursing facilities that may have dementia and have kidney disease, they may be scratching the
Mm-hmm.
catheter or pulling. We'll see patients come down with the bandage gone and
Mm-hmm.
just
Yeah.
the site, you see the site. And, you know, we're saying to ourselves, where are the CNAs or the nurses up on the floors that's supposed to be monitoring these patients and noticing this?
Yeah.
Right, but Steve, as a CNA, you're not supposed to touch dialysis sites. Like, they're not supposed to touch that.
No, but the nurses can.
Yeah, the nurses can. I can't speak for them, but
Right,
I
right,
used to
right.
be a CNA, and you just can't touch that. You really can't touch the dialysis arm. There's so many things that you can't touch when it comes
That's
to
true.
a
That's
renal
right.
patient. You
That's
know,
right.
but I remember when we used to use the Techaderm, it wasn't a lot of patients having infections. Well, not infections, having the bumps around here, and the dressings didn't come off so frequently. They
Right,
weren't
right.
so allergic to. I'm not sure if it's the new chloroprep that they're using or what.
Now I see that they have tegaderms with the antibacterial ointment on the tegaderm that I see that they use in some facilities. But like you said, every facility is different.
Right now,
Um,
I work for a nonprofit facility, so we don't have Techaderm. We have the gauze pad with the adhesive. We have that. We have, I think it's
uh-huh.
called Towelfold or something like that. We don't
Oh, the
have that.
Telfa Island.
Yes. Yep, we have
Yes.
that. Hmm.
Yeah,
So,
I'm familiar with that.
what what can we do, or what can healthcare workers do to prevent the spread of infections? Let me just share this. If you're getting receiving dialysis, this is a generalized basic steps in fistula and graft care. Now, this is the cannulation procedure.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, wash the site,
Hmm.
perform hand hygiene, put on a new clean pair of gloves, wear proper face protection, and of course your PPE, apply skin antiseptic and allow it to dry,
Yes.
insert needle using aseptic technique. And
Hmm.
aseptic technique has here means taking great care to not contaminate the fistula or graft site before or during the cannulation or decannulation procedure. And
Right.
so once you insert the needle using, the aseptic technique, you put your tape on, tape it down, and then you remove your gloves and perform hand hygiene.
I agree with that, Steve. I do. I believe once you cannulate the patient and right before you connect, you change your gloves. You
I
It's
know,
agree. I
supposed to,
even
agree,
but
Steve.
that doesn't happen a lot.
no, and the reason why I say that because sometimes when you cannulate the arm, blood starts to come out of the access, so
Sure, it
you have
does.
to catch it, and then it's on your hands, and then you go touch the machine, then you come back and touch the machine, and it's just a lot of back and forth.
Back and forth.
And
But
then
can
if
I?
a patient, go ahead,
No, I'm sorry,
it's okay.
Tamika. I
If
just
a
wanted to
patient, mhm.
say something really important that just came to my mind. I don't want to lose it. I want to say something really important to patients. Patients have to take responsibility as well. Yes, our healthcare workers have a responsibility to take care of you, but as a patient, when you come in from the street and you go to the scale and you put your things down in your chair, you should go over to that sink and
And
wash your
wash.
hands first with
Hmm.
soap and water and
Yep.
then wash your
Your
access,
access. Yes.
and then you'll have even less of a risk of getting an infection
Hmm.
because the technician or the nurse or whoever's going to put you on the machine is going to use antiseptic on your access before they cannulate you. But any surface dirt or anything that you've come into contact with in the ambulette, in the elevator, from touching people in the waiting area. Even if you took a shower before you came to dialysis, you need to wash your access before that technician or that nurse comes to you to cannulate you before treatment. And that should be your level of responsibility. And you would be surprised how many patients told me nobody ever told me to wash my arm before treatment.
Right. Now, at my unit, we tell them, but then you have the patients to say, well, I took a bath before I came, I took a shower
Yeah,
before I came. But you also put
exactly.
lotion on, you also put oil on.
Exactly.
So when we're wiping, we're getting brown on
Right.
the
From the
alcohol pad.
residue from the oils.
Exactly. Well, I'm clean. I'm clean. No, your arm is not clean because it has oils on it.
That's
So you
right.
have to clean your arm again. So could you please go wash your arm? Sometimes that's an argument. So you know
Yeah.
what patients you're going to say it to prevent the argument. And that's what I had to tell my boss. Like, you're not out here when we're getting cursed out. You're not out here when we're being
Right.
threatened. You know.
Yeah.
So Tamika, what could be done globally, or what could you suggest patients do to understand that so they won't apply lotion or gel in their arm before they go to dialysis to prevent the arguing or trying to convince them to look, this is this is what you got on your arm and this what can cause this. How could we change that mindset?
I think for one, there needs to be more education, like visual education, not just the pamphlets, because a lot of patients are unable to read. I'm sorry, but a lot
Yeah.
of them cannot read. So, but they're always quick to watch TV. So if they have people that resemble them on TV, like Dawn, that can talk to them, that can have a 20-minute PSA on proper hand washing, I think that that will go off better.
Yes, Tamika, that is so true. We watch all kinds of things on the television, but
Yes.
I just honestly believe that all the dialysis facilities should have at least one PSA announcement at
A
the
treatment.
beginning of treatment.
Hmm.
Every treatment, they should learn something different.
Right.
Be
Kind
it
of like the airport. I mean, kind of like when you're on a plane,
right. Yes.
just even if it's repetitive on you're on your treatment, sit back,
Yes.
relax. Don't get up to stand up because this is going on or whatever the situation. The most important things about their treatment needs to be said, like in the checklist, like, have you checked your checklist today? Today's
Yes.
checklist is your blood pressure, you're standing and you're sitting. If you're unable to stand, let the nurse know or the technician. Something basic that they can really understand, but it needs to be in a video because people don't read.
You're so
Right.
right. You're so right.
And
And
we in age of technology where this is this can happen, but it's just the units or the companies have to put this in place.
they have to take a sense of they have to take a sense of
Responsibility.
responsibility.
Hmm.
And we all have our level of responsibility. I know that I have a responsibility as a patient to do my treatment the way that I was trained to do it.
Right.
And to do my labs when I'm supposed to. And as a care worker, you have your job to do, and you
Right.
you own some of that responsibility as well.
Right. And with the video, I believe it would go better if it was a person that was a patient that they can relate to,
Of
because
course,
when I have a conversation, they be like, you don't understand. I said, well, I may not understand from your seat, but
yes,
I remember my son being wheeled into that dialysis center.
yes,
I remember the emotional impact that I had. No, I've never been on the machine, but
right,
I am a mother of a child
right.
who has kidney disease. I am a cousin of someone who has kidney disease,
That's right.
So I may not have been in that seat, but I truly empathize with what you're going through because this is not just a
Yes,
job,
that's right.
it's
Absolutely.
personal.
Yes. And I can say it because I had MRSA and I saw what it did to my family. My family didn't know whether I was going to live, live or die.
Mm-hmm.
And the doctors, they told them, to be prepared for the worst.
Mm-hmm.
As a result of this infection, and
Right.
these are things that are preventable. They
Right.
they're
And
preventable,
they cost nothing.
right?
It's free. It costs nothing.
And
For
patients have to educate themselves. You
mm-hmm.
can't just sit there and expect, you know, everything to come to you. This is your disease. So
Right.
you have to own some of the responsibility.
Stability.
Yes,
Right.
I say that our people who are taking care of us have a great responsibility. But we
Mm-hmm.
can we can learn, we can learn things. If you can go online, then you can go onto the CDC website, and they have information for patients just
Yes.
like they have information for staff.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
It can happen. It's just small baby steps,
Right.
in the
Mhm.
right direction. And then also for doing for you, you could also create these videos and sell them to the units.
That's every time I come on this show, I get some kind of idea. Steve gave me an idea last time
Yeah.
I was on, and now but you know what?
Yes.
You don't even have to do that. There's your ESRD network,
They're
which
not going to do all that. They're not going
but
to do all
they
that.
have them. They have videos out right now to show you how to
Yes.
wash your hands.
Yep. And how many
You know.
units actually use it?
Yeah, well, see,
But if you
that's the problem.
right,
That's
but
the
if you go
issue.
in
Yeah.
there if you go in there as an advocate and be like, this is what I have, you talk to the patients, you ask if there's a DVD player, and you go in there and you slide your DVD in,
Yes, you're right. You're right,
and you
because
market your DVD.
just like we can watch the sports
Yes,
and what Donald Trump is doing today, we can watch a public service and we can watch a public service announcement that's going to keep us alive and keep us
hmm
safe and healthy.
right.
Because I strongly believe that there's not enough education
Nope,
being shared with the patients. The
it's
staff
not.
just doesn't have time
hmm
to do it.
Yep,
They
and you
don't
go
have time. They got numbers to be worried about.
right, but it's just like when you educate your children. Do you
Yes,
just let the school educate them, or when they come home, you
you
also
have to do
educate
it
them?
at home.
We all
Yes,
have to work as a team, as a dialysis tech, as Steve the nurse, as you a patient. We have to work as a team for that patient to continue to be healthy.
that's right. That's right. Well, patients, I guess y'all are mad at me because I said that we have some part of the responsibility, but I just need for everybody to really understand that clean hands save lives. You have to be careful what you're doing inside that dialysis unit. It's a healthcare facility.
Yes,
It's not clean like you think.
right.
There's blood-borne illnesses that are just flying all over the place in there, and you have to take precaution. You got to be careful when you're putting your hands in your eyes,
Yes,
in your mouth, in your nose. Those are
yes.
all. Those are all just like Steve said.
Ew.
That's a host.
Yes.
All you have to do is put your hands on something and put your fingers in your eyes, and you got an eye infection.
I have one for you. Please don't pick up that cigarette that fell out of your pocket.
Ah!
And okay.
Oh no! Don't even
Yes.
don't even say that,
Yes.
Tamika. But you know what?
Yes.
I got one for you too. What about the patients that walk around with no shoes on going to the scale? And a lot of these patients have diabetes, and you can get anything in your feet.
If they only knew what's been
If
on
you
that
only
floor.
knew. If
If
you
you
only
only
knew.
knew. I tell
Yeah,
them that only all the time. If you only knew what I just had to clean up before you got here.
But
exactly.
but not
Exactly.
only that, but just the shoes that walks across the floor, different people's shoes. You walking outside, going here, going there. You walk in an acid, bicarb.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yes, and the ones that go to the restroom with their shoes on.
Oh boy. Woo!
So, so Don, what as we winding down in
Yes.
time, as a patient advocate and as a former home dialysis patient, what would you like to see change in the facilities that can pretty much reduce the risk of infection among dialysis patients?
Well, again, I'd just like to say that I think that everybody has to own their share of the
Hmm.
responsibility. Um, the dialysis facility can put signs up all over the place. They can give a patient a checklist. And like Tamika said, if the patient can't read or they don't understand the language, then you've done nothing.
Hmm.
So everybody has to own their share of responsibility and not be so
Right.
sensitive to correction.
Yes.
If the technician tells me, Miss Edwards, I need you to go and wash your arm before treatment, then don't get sensitive and say I took a bath already. They're trying to
Right.
save your lives, their lives, and their families' lives.
Right.
And the same thing goes for a patient. If I ask my technician, I'm sorry, I didn't see you take those gloves out of the box. Would you mind using hand gel on your hands and getting a fresh pair of gloves before
Right.
you touch me?
Hmm.
I
Right.
think that we should stop being so sensitive, and we should be a lot more sympathetic and caring.
Right. And stop hanging that tape on the side of the.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
since y'all said that, let's uh, talk right quick about what Jessica Frisk wrote.
I'm still here. Go ahead.
Uh, Jessica wrote, "People sneezing and it goes on the floor."
There you
Hmm.
go.
Hmm.
I mean, that's
Hmm.
So,
that's that's germs right there.
Yep.
And you walking
and, and
around with
and
no
what about
shoes on, and then you
what
gonna
about
go,
coughing?
yeah,
People
coughing,
coughing in the unit.
the same thing. And then the germs are spread all on you. And the first thing you do when you go home is you go lay on the bed with your clothes on.
Yep. Hmm.
You have
Hmm.
to understand that you work in an environment that is full of germs.
Germs.
I'm guilty of that. I was guilty of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can all sharpen up on our skills.
Yeah, because I've
Oh,
touched the machine plenty of times without a glove. Just in the middle of something, the machine goes off, and then I run her up and touch the machine, not thinking about infection control, but hurry up trying to get the machine before the person blood clot
Caught.
or
yeah,
Exactly.
or
exactly.
or
Yeah,
it would be something like a person crashed. I'm not thinking I'm going to get what I need, opening up the saline, running around, putting the chair back, and not thinking
right,
about infection control. So I know I am guilty of some of it, but I do try to be more mindful also. But in an emergency situation, it's only seconds.
right.
It's only
And,
seconds.
and one thing that I wanted to mention too, I see that sometimes our workers in the dialysis facility, they'll have the mask on,
Mhm.
but they won't have it covering their nose, just the mouth. What's the purpose?
Listen,
You know,
that mask, let me tell you, being pregnant with that mask, listen,
I
honey.
Yeah,
can't.
you're right.
Yeah,
You're right, Don. You're right because we each have staff under in our nasal
in your
flares.
neck. That's
Right.
right. That's right.
Right. So it's something that we all can work on
And
and
we
get
all,
better at.
yes, we can all do it.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
and I would definitely suggest that everybody go to the Centers for Disease Control website and
Hmm.
look up infection control in dialysis and
Hmm.
learn how to wash your hands. It's
Properly.
not just it's not just putting that soap on and doing like this
Hmm.
and that's it. You have to get it under your nails. You have
15
Yes.
you
seconds.
There you go.
Yes.
You have
Sing
to
happy birthday.
sing happy birthday twice. I read. I just read that today. It was happy birthday twice. And
Mm-hmm.
they also said not just to rub the palms of your hands, but to
Go up
take
your
your
arms.
nails and
Mm-hmm.
scratch your palms so that the soap
Yep.
can get under the nails.
Mm-hmm.
Because we carry unbelievable amounts of germs and bacteria under the nails.
Yes. And the hands are very dirty
Yes.
because you're so
Don,
busy touching things.
Don, right quick before we sign off, tell us what exactly New York State CKD Champions organization about.
Okay, well, New York State CKD Champions is a group. It's a Facebook group that we post information on for patients as well as staff. Everyone is welcome to join, and we post information from scholarly journals, from just patient experience, so that we can be more aware of what's going on in the transplant community, in the dialysis community, as well as all of the treatment modalities, so
Mm-hmm.
that patients and staff members can be educated, encouraged, and empowered. and
Right.
and what we also do is we do health fairs, family reunions. We do
Mm.
all types of community outreach so that people can be aware of kidney disease and how dangerous it is, and so that our patients can be informed and not getting all of that bad
Mm-hmm.
information that you get in the waiting room in the dialysis facility, so that you can
Yes.
get the truth.
Yes.
So we post all
Absolutely.
kinds of information that is helpful to patients as well as staff members. And I say that because I have a doctor or two
Mm-hmm.
that are and nurses that are members of our Facebook group. So
Okay,
we
so
invite
are you just a
anybody to
Facebook
join.
group?
Yes.
So,
Okay.
do you have chapters? Like, me personally, just my brain, I think that you should have chapters. That way, in each state, there's someone working doing your mission. That's just me. I'm
You
sorry.
picking my brain, Tamika,
I
but
am. I'm
when
sorry.
when we came up with the name of New York State CKD Champions, our
Hmm.
overall goal, we've only been in existence 4 years,
Hmm.
but our overall goal was to have a chapter in different states so that you
Right.
have the Maryland CKD champions,
Right.
you have the Washington CKD champions. So
Right.
I would love to see us grow
Right.
to a point like that, so that
It can
everybody's
happen.
just it can, yes, it can.
You know how?
I stay prayed up.
Not just that, the power asking.
Yes,
The people that's in it on Facebook, they're not just from New York,
that's right.
whomever, and just ask, would you like to be a part of this chapter? You live in Pennsylvania. We're going to have this meeting, this meetup on Zoom, and this is how. And then you send them information so they can go to different places and advocate.
Well, that's exactly what I would love to see. We need so many more patient advocates, because it's a thankless job sometimes, but it's so necessary.
It really is. Like, listen to you. This the second time you was on, and I spoke with you, and it's really needed. And your message will get across more because you're a patient. They don't listen. Like, sometimes the new patients listen when I talk about the story about my son, and I get really emotional
Yes,
because he's not out the woods. He's at the age where it comes out of remission.
yes,
Mhm.
So I'm
yeah,
always on edge. Like, how many times did you go to the bathroom? Did you pee a lot? So
right. Yes, yes,
my cry is different from your cry,
yes, it
and the
is.
patients will, like, more so understand where you're coming from because you and them went through the same journey
Yes, and
versus me and them. It's a
that
paycheck, so they think for me. Only if they knew.
right. Yeah,
Mhm.
But
that's very
it's a
true.
it's a personal fight because my baby, you
Yeah,
know.
that's true. And patients definitely listen to patients because
Yes.
they can definitely pick up the wrong information in the waiting
Yes.
room.
That's what
So,
they do, pick up the wrong information.
right. So
Yeah.
I feel that I have a sense of responsibility to help
Mm-hmm.
spread the right information.
Right. Yes, yes, yes.
All right.
Yep.
Well, Don, we definitely appreciate you joining us this week on Urban Renal Talk with Tamika and Steve, and
Yes.
I hope that this information will get out there, and patients will look at the way they receive treatment in a
Mm-hmm.
different manner, and be more responsible and advocate more to protect themselves and healthcare workers from spreading
More contamination.
infection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just want to thank you so much for you all hosting me and giving me this forum to reach out and and talk and express myself and spread a little bit of information. And poor Tamika, I hope that you make it through these next 5 weeks and
Gosh.
it's not too hard for you.
I'm just ready to go. I
I,
just want to
I
go.
I can only imagine, and I just want to dedicate tonight's broadcast, my part of it. I want to dedicate it to my ride or die, Stephanie Dixon.
Oh,
She is my infection control princess. So I just hope that I said everything that I needed to say and I didn't embarrass her.
oh.
Oh, that was nice of you to do that. That was nice. So, all right, y'all. Until next week, join us again. We'd like to thank everyone for watching Urban Reno Talk with Tamika and Steve. Tamika, I'll see you next week and be talking to you off camera. Don, I'll be talking with you as well. Try to get that chapter because Tamika always had the good ideas.
I'm telling you, yeah, I need to have a notebook when
Yeah,
I come on.
yeah. I mean, you
Yeah.
can have it in 50 states. I mean, you could do it.
Yeah,
You
it
could
would
do it
be
overseas too.
fantastic.
Like, you don't just limit to the United States. Kidney disease is just not here. Kidney disease is everywhere.
It's
Yeah.
global. Yes, it
It's
is.
global. Yes, it's a global epidemic. So can you imagine?
Yes.
Speak it into existence. Put it on your wall. 5 years from now, you could be anywhere.
I'm loving that, Tamika.
Okay, Steve,
Yeah.
All
keep the
right.
press.
All right.
Oh,
Good night, everyone. Thanks
all
for
right.
watching. See you, Tamika.
All
See
right.
Good
you,
night
Don. Have a
now.
good day.
Okay, now you
All right.
too.